I'm pleased to rise in the House to speak to Bill S-210. This bill has quite a long, full title, but seeks to do just one small thing. But the important thing, I would say, that it is, and that is to repeal the short title of the former Bill S-7. I and my New Democratic colleagues wholeheartedly support this initiative. Words matter, Madam Speaker, and when crafting legislation in this place, they matter even more. The words members of this place use and the words used to craft the laws of a country set a tone and an example for Canadians. We must always keep that responsibility in mind, and we must always take it very seriously. I was glad to see Senator Jafford take on this initiative, encouraged by the broad support it received in the Senate, and happy to see that the member for Cloverdale-Langley City sponsored this bill here in this House of Commons. Choosing to title Bill S-7 the Zero Tolerance for Barbaric Cultural Practices Act was just that, an intentional choice. This choice was one that at the time New Democrats saw as irresponsible at best or dangerous dog whistle politics at worst. The NDP attempted to change its title during S7's committee study, but the former Conservative government's Minister of Immigration had already announced that he would not consider any amendments to the bill. Madam Speaker, it is with great privilege that I have held the role as NDP critic for immigration, refugees, and citizenship, as well as multiculturalism, and it is through my time in these roles that I've had the opportunity to understand just how important small initiatives like repealing this inappropriate short title actually are. Today, we are faced with a global migration crisis. The United Nations estimates that there are over 65 million people forcibly displaced at a level that has not been seen since World War II. Not only are the humanitarian actions that we as Canadians take to address these global challenges important, but so too are the words we use when we're discussing it. At the height of the Syrian refugee crisis, many European nations were closing their doors to asylum seekers fleeing a brutal civil war. Anti-immigrant, anti-refugee, and anti-Muslim rhetoric had truly taken hold in some places. This was pushed in many corners by far-right nationalist political movements. They discredited the idea of the Syrians fleeing this war, one where we have seen intentional targeting of civilians with barrel bombs and chemical weapons as economic migrants trying to jump the queue. The rhetoric was effective. And as I've said in this House before, I was shocked to read the quote from our own Prime Minister on November 23rd when he took that rhetoric on regarding the irregular border crossing situation, stating, and I quote, "Would-be Canadians need more than just a desire for a better economic future if they expect to be granted refugee status in this country," end quote. Words matter. Given the rise of globally in anti-immigrant and anti-refugee rhetoric, we as Canadians, and especially as parliamentarians, must do more than just rest on our humanitarian laurels to prevent these ideas from taking hold here. Canada has thus far gone against the trend, and we need to work hard to keep it that way. This is important because not only does it shape how we respond to those outside our borders, but how we treat members of our own communities. I was troubled to see that police-reported hate crimes in Canada continue to rise from 2015 to 2016. In 2016, there were over 1,400 hate crimes reported to police, and 48% of those were motivated by hatred of a race or ethnicity. The short title of Bill S-7 shamefully attempted to reframe crimes committed by individuals as normal practices of so-called barbaric cultures. Many Canadians at the time when we saw Bill 7 was tabled saw this as being targeting towards Muslim Canadians. In my opinion, that it was also clear during the Canadian Heritage Committee study of systemic racism and religious discrimination that there is a clear segment of our society that is continuing the push to denigrate the culture and heritage of Muslim Canadians. I believe this can unfortunately be seen in our hate crime statistics too. In 2016, Arab or West Asian Canadians were the target of 112 hate crimes, and Muslim Canadians were the target of 139 hate crimes. Combined, this represents 18% of all police-reported hate crimes. So while I and my colleagues support Bill S-210, we believe that there is much more to be done. Words matter, but so too do actions. Coming out of the Heritage Committee study, New Democrats supported the report tabled in the House and its recommendations for taking action against systemic racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia. But we believe that there was still more that could be done. And so, as the NDP representative, I table a supplementary report containing an additional 29 recommendations aimed toward making Canada a more just, fair, and inclusive place. I was pleased to see in the budget table yesterday a commitment and a recognition for a need for a new national, national anti-racism plan and a plan to deal with discrimination, religious discrimination. However, Madam Speaker, I was very disappointed to see that once again this government is merely committing to consultation. Words matter, but so too do actions. The Heritage Committee that met 22 times over the course of the study, hearing from 72 witnesses, receiving countless written submissions, tabling a 130-page report, and the report's first 4 recommendations outlined how to get moving on a renewed national action plan with a timeline, resources, and measurable outcomes. I hope that this consultation process is not a long, drawn-out one. What's more, I hope that at the end of the process, it would yield a concrete plan that is resourced. We have seen time and again that the pattern of behavior from this government, that they like to consult, but the follow-up, not so much. We've seen that movie played out with electoral reform, where Canadians overwhelmingly say that they want a system where every vote counts. But the government decides to ignore all that good advice, and the Prime Minister makes a unilateral decision to break his own promise to Canadians that the 2015 election would be the last first-past-the-post election. Worse still, the Prime Minister thumbs his nose at Canadians who participated in the many town halls that many MPs held in their communities and the extensive consultation process that an all-party committee embarked on. So you will excuse me, Madam Speaker, if I'm just a little bit skeptical whenever the government says that they will consult. Madam Speaker, we heard loud and clear during the study about the rise of hate crime incidents in Canada. Witnesses say that immediate action should be taken to provide improved training and education to Canada's law enforcement agencies to better understand and recognize when hate is a motivating factor in the commission of a crime. We need to ensure that provinces and territories are resourced with proper hate crime units. This is something that the government can do now. Actions matters. We also heard about the underreporting of hate incidents to authorities, often out of fear from the victim that they wouldn't be taken seriously. Underreporting of hate crime incidents is a known fact. The government needed to ensure barriers are removed for victims to come forward. Resourcing a hotline in collaboration with community groups would have done just that. But that wasn't part of Budget 2018. Canadians do not want to see victims of hate crime and systemic discrimination to continue to suffer silently. Actions matter. What we know is that hate is a learned behavior. We must do more as a society to counter those who teach and promote hate and division. Given the current climate in the increase in hateful and anti-immigrant rhetoric across the developed world, Canada cannot rest on its laurels when it comes to diversity and inclusion. To ensure that Canada continues to go against those trends, investments must be made into our newcomer communities to ensure that they can integrate successfully and to thrive. We need to build on the hard work of community groups by investing in supporting organizations that work to strengthen community involvement, civic inclusion, and to develop community leaders. Actions matter. Let's get on with it with love and courage, Madam Speaker.